Hey everyone, sorry about that. We had a technical difficulty, got some links mixed up. So sorry about the delay, but thank you everyone for being here today. We're featuring Joe Stike from Zapier. And we also have Alan Bush here, who runs Rackspace's technical community, and he runs the weekly hangouts for Rackspace as well. So for those of you that don't know, Zapier is a platform where you can easily integrate some of your everyday applications where you want to whether you want to integrate data or automate tasks. It's a great platform to do that. And it's also great for those that don't have the skill set to code, like myself, or don't have the dev resources to deploy code. So we're going to, and also, as you know, Zapier has been using Mailgun from the beginning for marketing and transactional emails. So Joe's going to go over some of that, and also kind of go over some of the best practices they abide by. We do have some questions already submitted, so we're going to go ahead and address those at the end of the presentation. But if you do have questions that come up during the presentation, you can submit them. And so what are some of the best ways they can submit questions, Alan?
Yeah, sure. There's a couple of different ways. So directly within the Google Plus application, there is a little question and answer column on the right-hand side. Just go ahead and drop in your questions that way, and we are more than happy to get them answered for you. The other ways that you can do that, if you're watching along on YouTube, we have the ability to pull in any questions from YouTube. And then if you are following along on Twitter as well, drop us a line with the hashtag Mailgun Hangouts, and we'll be able to show them right here and answer your questions. So go ahead and get in touch with us. I mean, the main thing here is that if you're watching and you have a question, we want to make sure that we can answer this. And we've got a lot of great expertise here, and we can get those questions answered for you. And if you stump us, then we're going to go ahead and follow up with you offline and make sure we answer the question one way or the other.
Right, and we'll send you the versions there as well if we weren't able to get to them in this hour. So with that being said, I'd like to introduce Joe, who runs marketing for Zapier. And as mentioned, he's going to cover some of the things that they do with email.
Hey, thanks, Angela. First off, just want to say thank you to the Mailgun team for inviting me today. I really just wanted to present some of the stuff that we do with Mailgun, how we use Mailgun at Zapier to run all of our email marketing, really. And also how you can start to use Zapier and Mailgun together to automate some of your process. So I do have a presentation here. Let me pull that up. You guys can see that all right?
Yeah, looks good.
Perfect. Alrighty. So there are three things that I really want to touch on today. First off, what Zapier is. So Angela gave a nice little summary there, but I'll show you a little bit about how you can actually use Mailgun and Zapier together. I also want to touch on how we manage our email marketing and what we've learned along the way. So kind of, what we've succeeded with, the failures that we faced, and kind of what we learned from those experiences. And as they said, at the end, we'll have some time for questions. So let's jump in. So first off, what is Zapier? We really want to make people's lives easier with automation. So to do that, we tap into different apps, APIs, and help them talk to each other and perform tasks between one another. So it's all trigger and action based. So the first app, if something happens in it, Zapier sees that, and then it tells the second app to perform some sort of action that you specify. So a lot of that can be like adding features to an app that doesn't necessarily work the way you want it to. For example, if you had like a form on your website and you wanted to instantly send all the results to a Google spreadsheet, we could do that with Zapier. And that's something that's not necessarily baked into all the apps that you use. The other thing that we do really well is we help people automate stuff in the background. So we're kind of a set it and forget it kind of app. You set up a Zap and it just works in the background. You don't have to go back and play with it. You don't have to kick it into motion. It just kind of happens. Other stuff about Zapier, we have more than 450 apps that are connected to our platform, and we're growing all the time. And then each of those apps has different triggers and actions that you can play around with. So there are like hundreds of thousands of combinations that you can try out. So one of the reasons I'm here today is because Mailgun actually works with Zapier. So you'll see on this page the triggers and actions that Mailgun has on Zapier. We have a bunch of different options here. For example, you can trigger events in other apps based on like if you have a new unsubscriber in Mailgun, if there's a new click event, or if there's a new bounced email. And then the kind of actions you can take are you can add someone to a Mailgun mailing list, or you could send them an email via your Mailgun account. So to explore that a little bit further, I just want to show you guys a few examples of some Zaps that our users really like. So here's one. It is a Zap that sends you a message in Slack whenever you have an email from your Mailgun account that isn't delivered. So if you don't know, Slack is a team messaging app, and it's kind of just an alert so that you can stay on top of your sends, ensure deliverability, and tackle problems as soon as they come up. So you can really customize this app too. You don't have to use Slack. You can use things like HipChat if you're on that for team chat. You can get a text message if you want that, or you could get something like in your Gmail account for a failed send. So let's also take a look at the action side of things. And since we got started a little bit late, I'll go to my second example here. So this is an example of using Mailgun as an action app. So Wufoo is a forum app that lets you build different forums on your websites and embed them. So this app could be used to send an email to someone who fills out your Wufoo form. For example, if you wanted to send them like a receipt or a confirmation or a thank you email, this app would help out with that. One really cool thing about using Zapier is you can actually grab data from the trigger app, in this case Wufoo, and use it in your action app. So in this case, like, let's say that I had a forum on my website for photography services, and the person who filled it out supplied their first name and what dates they were interested in. So I could send that data to Mailgun and create an email that said, like, hey, Angela, thank you so much for inquiring about our photography services. We are going to get back to you about June 30th or whatever date I put in. So that's really important for personalizing the email and kind of helping to send the email based on like the data that you have from that form. And as I'm going to get into next here, personalization is very key to sending successful email campaigns. So if that's of interest to you, you can check out Zapier.com for some more Mailgun integrations, and happy to answer any questions about those at the end as well. So now let's move on to more of the meaty part of the presentation, is how we actually use Mailgun at Zapier to run our email marketing. So I want to touch on the challenges that we face, how we engage with our users with like transactional and drip emails, and then, like I said before, what's kind of worked for us so far, so that hopefully you guys can learn a little bit about that. So if you don't know already, Zapier does a lot of different stuff. Honestly, I would be lying to you if I told you that I knew what every single Zapier connected app does. Like I said, there are 450 of them, and all of them have different options. Mailgun alone has 8 triggers and 2 actions. And when you get down to it, you can make hundreds of thousands of different combinations. So that said, with so many possibilities, our user education actually gets really difficult. Educating users is honestly very hard to begin with, to teach them how to use your app or about why your product is better. And we're not a single-use kind of app. So when I think of single-use apps, I think of something like Pinterest, where the use case is pretty much, if you like this image, then click pin it, and it goes to your Pinterest board. That's a pretty easy activity to teach your users. Zapier, people use it in totally different ways all the time. So we need to remember that with Zapier, the experience with the app is totally going to depend on the apps that they've connected to Zapier. So our users are going to be like completely disinterested if we try to educate them on the wrong app. So like if someone only uses Gmail and we send them emails about Outlook, or we send them emails about even something like Evernote or Twitter, and they don't use those apps, they're just going to immediately delete them. So in all of our marketing, we try to really embrace like the openness that Zapier offers, while also trying to target to those new users. So this targeting and pointing people in the right path is like super important for our new users and helping them learn about how to use the app. But we also need to consider our active users. So active users on Zapier, honestly, they're just very active. Once someone actually gets going with Zapier, it becomes part of their workflow. It becomes how they run their business. And we really need to help those people continue to succeed with the app. So we can't just focus on teaching people the basics. We also need to help those people who have already succeeded. So that's where kind of our emails in more of the transactional way come in. We alert these people about issues with their Zaps. So if some Zap is having a error, then we send them an email immediately about it. Or if, say, something like their credit card was declined, we want to let them know as soon as possible, so that they don't experience any interruptions of service or loss of data. So now I want to touch on actually how we at Zapier manage our email marketing with Mailgun. So I split our emails into two different lists, our drip emails and our transactional emails. So drip emails are emails that make up basically our marketing campaigns. Drip marketing is the idea that you want to nurture a new user or a new visitor from that first visit stage all the way into a paying customer. So you kind of do that with information like helpful tips, tutorials, giving them examples, pointing them in the right direction. And these drip emails usually go out based on things that you know about the user. The second kind of emails that we send are transactional emails. So those are more action-based and they're event-based based on what the user is doing in their account. So those are a little more straightforward. Like, for example, we might send one if someone signs up for a new feature, like two-factor authentication. We would send them an email confirmation that they actually signed up for it, that it's working, stuff like that. So first, let's look at our drip emails, how we manage those, and then we'll dive into the transactional stuff. So our drip emails at Zapier run through something called Jango Drip. So when Zapier was first getting started, this is probably around like 2013, our co-founders decided that they really wanted to focus on a few different marketing channels. And email ended up being one of those channels. So they decided to build their own email framework, basically. One of our co-founders and one of our developers, Brian Helmick, he built a tool called Jango Drip, and that's where we run all of our emails through. So it's an open source engine that provides like the framework for our emails and then sends those requests to Mailgun to actually deliver the emails. So all of our emails are queued up in this admin system, and I can do things like set a schedule, set different people that they're going to be sent to, a bunch of different stuff. And the really nice thing is, like I said, it's open source. So both the community can build on it, but also we can build out new features as we need them. So if we were using like a third-party email manager, we would be kind of limited in what we can do with it because we'd have to rely on them to build new features. As our marketing expands, our developers have been able to build those things for us. So what about actually creating these drip campaigns? There are a few things to consider there. So when you're actually planning out these marketing strategies, we use Jango Drip to send them, and I actually build them on our admin site using the Jango Drip form or the Jango Drip forms. So what you really want to do when you're building out drip campaigns is these three things. You want to leverage segmentation. What I mean by that is you want to really decide the kind of people that you're sending each email to. And with the Jango tool, I can actually decide like, I want to send emails to people who only use this certain app or who have like this many Zaps set up or who signed up for an account 5 days ago, stuff like that. So that's what I mean by segmentation. It's really kind of demographic data about the people who you're sending to. So once you decide on a segment, you really need to understand who that audience is. You need to understand kind of what they struggle with and why they want to use your product. So if I was sending to just people who used Mailgun together with Zapier, I would try to consider like, why they came to Zapier, why they're using Mailgun in the first place, what they want to accomplish, and how we can actually help them and point them in the right direction. And then the final thing here is kind of where those two come together. So you really want to be helpful and relevant with the content that you're presenting. You need to ask, like, is this actually going to help the audience that I'm targeting succeed with our product? And is it going to convince them that they should buy our product or use it more, or whatever your goal is? So let's take a look at a couple emails that we've actually sent out at Zapier. So one of our really successful ones has been our Getting Started series. So this is actually part of what we would call a course email. It goes out to first-time users. So in the first 5 days, they'll get 5 different emails. And this one has actually been really successful because it helps to educate them on the basics of Zapier without getting too specific about like the apps that they're using. So we chose a couple of pretty universal apps, ones that are pretty easy to teach people about. And then we kind of walked them through the process of actually creating their own Zap. So we're kind of giving them the tools and the know-how to customize their own solutions. We also didn't really want to overwhelm them with too much information. So we sent this out over 5 days. But we also provided a link to a full guide if they wanted to just get started immediately. So this has been really successful for us, both in helping people use the product more successfully, and also in increasing the number of clicks and visits and successful tasks that people have with Zapier. Second up here is our weekly summary email. So this is another example of our drip emails. It goes out every 7 days to users who have it enabled. And each week it tells people about how Zapier saved them time with certain zaps and how many tasks those zaps ran. So people can look at the zaps that have saved them time. They can go like tweak them if they need to change some stuff, or it can inspire them to go back and re-engage with the product and create new zaps. So this has been really successful for us in getting our traffic to come back on a consistent basis. And finally, I want to share one example of a drip email that is not so good. So this wasn't like a giant failure or anything, but it was a less good version of our onboarding emails. So this email, basically the goal was we took some zaps that were very popular with our community and we sent them out to our new users. So within the first few days of signing up, we would send this out and say, hey, these are some ideas of zaps that you could set up. We actually got very little interaction on these because we didn't account for that segmentation. So we didn't really take into account which apps they were using or which apps they were interested in. We pretty much just sent them what we considered quote unquote popular. So the other problem with this is that it didn't actually educate people. It didn't teach them why the Zap was good, why it was useful to them, and how to actually set one up successfully. It just told them this is something that other people do. You might want to try it out. So we're actually working right now on putting a little more customization into these emails, making sure that they have more relevant content based on the apps that the person who receives the email is using. So let's next touch on our transactional emails.
Hey Joe, before we finish up with the transactional side of things, there, I just want to welcome everybody that's joined us throughout this. Again, we apologize for the slight technical difficulties we had getting started here. But just want to welcome everybody again, and just mention that if you are watching and have a question, we'd love to be able to answer that question for you. And there's a couple of different ways that you can do that, and that's directly through the question and answer app along the right-hand side. I know a lot of people had already used it to ask the question, hey, are you guys there? We are. Hey, so we answered some of them. But if you haven't had a chance to ask your question there, go ahead and drop it right on in. We're happy to answer. We're also live on YouTube, so just drop a comment into the comments on YouTube, or you can comment along on social media with hashtag Mailgun Hangouts, and we're more than happy to answer your questions that way as we go along. But Joe, just thanks again. This has been so great so far. I really enjoy hearing, especially like some of these lessons that you've learned. I think that's really important. Yeah, not just hey, everything's great, because things look like they are pretty great now, but it's good to see how they've changed a little bit. So we'll go ahead and let you continue with the transactional side of things.
All right, cool. Thank you very much. So the transactional emails, as we touched on before, just to reiterate, these are a little more basic. So they're totally based on events that happen in the app or actions that the user takes with their account. So for example, if they sign up for Zapier, they get a welcome email. If they subscribe to our blog posts, they get kind of a summary of the most popular posts over the years. If they upgrade their account, they get a confirmation about that. And if, say, their Zap runs into an error, they'll actually get an email about that. So these are actually more set up on the, like within our code base. So we have our Mailgun account set up, of course, to basically trigger on hooks in our code. And as soon as this event happens on the user's account, Mailgun will kick off that email and send it straight to them. So a lot of times our transactional emails will be really about problems with the user's account. So we want to make sure that we're providing like that really specific information that helps them fix the problem as soon as possible. Like I was saying before, kind of with our very active users who use Zapier all the time, if there's a problem, they want to know immediately about it. So let's take a look at a couple examples here too. So one of the examples, first off, is our error email. So this actually used to be a lot more bare bones. It used to just kind of give you the details of the error and which Zap ran into the error without actually giving you any context or ideas about how to fix it. So when someone actually runs into an error, we do want to give them that idea of, you know, this is the technical reason this is happening. This is where you can go to fix the error if you need to. But we also want to help those less technical users see if they can troubleshoot it themselves. So we give them this troubleshooting checklist. If they want to run through that, they can kind of see, okay, maybe I don't have my authentication correctly in there, or maybe Dropbox is having an issue with this API, something like that. If they still can't get it working, then we also provide them with that information at the bottom there. Need some help, we tell them how to reach out to our support team. And our support team just does an awesome job at helping people out and walking them through kind of how to make their Zaps work for them. Then my last example here is a pretty simple one. So it's our task limit email. So we're a freemium app. We do offer a free trial, but then you can use the app for free for up to 5 Zaps and 100 tasks per month. But if someone's about to hit that limit, we want to warn them so that their Zaps don't turn off. This kind of serves a double function for us. We warn them that it's about to pause their Zaps for the month, but also that the only way to fix this is either to upgrade their account or to stop using Zapier so much. So this kind of works for us in alerting them that their account's about to hit an error and stop producing the results that they expect. But also it helps us drive upgrades and get people to, you know, start paying us. So that's about it for the examples there. As far as other best practices go, I just want to leave you guys with a few thoughts. First off, whenever you write an email, just really consider, would you want to receive this email? Honestly, this has been a great guiding principle for us. You are a very good test case for your customers or for your users. And if you would see this email in your inbox and immediately throw it in the trash, then you probably should reconsider the content there. Second of all, it's all about context. So in email, you really want to make sure that the user understands why they're getting the information that you're sending them. And you really want to gear the content of each email towards the segment that you're focusing on. And then third is being respectful of people's inboxes. So I don't know about you guys, but I try to keep my inbox pretty empty, and I pretty ruthlessly unsubscribe from stuff if I don't like it. So don't send like way too many emails to annoy people. They'll just stop using your product altogether. And make it super easy to unsubscribe from your stuff. If someone doesn't want to get our emails, we don't want to send them our emails. So we want to make it super easy. We have a like one-click unsubscribe right now in all of our emails, but that's actually something we could improve on. We're working right now to redesign our unsubscribe page to make it more clear, like what you're actually unsubscribing from, the other channels that you're subscribed to, and just make it really easy to unsubscribe from everything if you'd like to. So yeah, that's about it. So I guess now would be a good time for questions.
Well, hey, just in time for that, we've had a couple of questions come in. So let's start off with this one that we actually had come in a while back from Arnold Garcia. And Arnold had asked, how does Zapier deal with server-side spam filters, client-side spam junk filters, and new features like Office 365 Outlook clutter? How do you keep your mail out of junk boxes?
So junk is a very sticky situation, a very complicated question. And it's really bad if you get into that kind of situation. It's very difficult to get out of. So it's definitely an important thing to make sure you're managing your emails correctly and don't get on those junk files. Honestly, we haven't luckily faced a lot of those issues, but to stay off of those junk lists, the best way to go is just make sure that you're actually sending good emails. Like, make sure that your subject lines tell people what's inside of the email. Make sure that the content in your email is actually helpful, that people actually want to receive it. And then make sure that, kind of what I was saying before, make it really easy to unsubscribe. Like, don't give them an excuse to send your email to the junk folder. That's pretty much your best practices there. As far as like the Outlook is kind of interesting. Sorry, I totally forgot the name of the feature, but it's kind of like the Google tabbed inbox, right?
Right.
Yeah. So that's kind of like Outlook taking control of what it thinks its users want to see. I've seen a lot of companies like say, hey, add us to your mailing list, or make sure that you drag us over to this specific folder. We don't personally do that. We haven't had much issue with our emails not getting opened that way. But you can do stuff like that. You can directly ask users at the top of your email, hey, if you like us, then make sure you drag us over. But honestly, it all comes down to content again. If you're writing emails that people actually want to read, then they're going to make sure that they seek them out and get them. Like, personally, I know that I subscribe to a few email newsletters. If I don't get them every week, I would kind of like freak out and be like, oh, where is it? Is something wrong with the company? And blah, blah, blah. So
that's really good advice.
And that's like music to our ears. I mean, it's great to hear Mailgun. And we also have, best practices guide that we could definitely share it along with the Hangout. But yeah, it's great to hear Zapier, practice this stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So thank you for sending that one in, Arnold, earlier in the week. Hope you're viewing and have a chance to hear that answered. We've got several others, so keep them coming in. We love getting these questions here. All right. The next one is from Philip, and Philip says, are your emails within your code base, or are you using the Mailgun template functionality? Why or why not?
So our emails are within our code base. We do base them on those actions that are happening within the app. So we've just found that that's a lot easier implementation for our developers. We kind of have a templated way to do it within our code now. It's all based on Python. So we can basically say, we upload the template to our code base, and we tell the event to basically go grab that template and then tell Mailgun to send it off. So honestly, that's just kind of how it's been set up ever since I've been here. And I'm not sure what kind of considerations went into using the template or using the code base, but we just kind of have a system that works for us, and Mailgun's reliability has been really key there.
Good. That's another thing we like to hear around here. Good stuff. Good stuff. That actually is a bit similar to a question that I had while I was listening. It sounds like you had a lot of opportunities to just kind of lean on Mailgun for the actual action of sending out the emails, and really focus on the application itself and build that application, and not just the application, the code of the application, but the way that the application works for each individual user, what emails they receive, what notifications they get, and when. How has Mailgun allowed you to do that, to focus mostly on the application itself and not the process of sending emails?
Yeah, so I mean this in a very good way, but I spend very little time inside of Mailgun. That's kind of the way that it should be, right?
Good.
I've pretty much had no issues with that. I set it all up with our tools, and like I was saying before, our Jango Drip tool is really nice because we can build on top of it. So the core functionality is there with Mailgun. Mailgun's our actual ESP sending our emails. But we've been able to work a lot on like building up our features and making it more usable for us, and therefore we can target our users a little bit better. So hopefully better content for them too.
Great.
Okay, we have another question from Laura. Question is, if you use Mailgun through another app like Job Science, which is an app on Salesforce, does this make it more confusing setting up Zaps?
That is a good question. I don't actually know the answer to that because I have not used it through another application. Basically, the way that you set up Mailgun with Zapier is you hook up your account either through, I think it's through providing your API key. So as long as you have a Mailgun account and you can get access to your user settings, then you should be golden to use it with Zapier. But something like Salesforce, we also integrate with Salesforce. I don't think we integrate with Job Science, but you could also use it through that too.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with Job Science and how that works, but one thing that I've seen that, and I think this might be kind of analogous here, is you have a I use a more of a consumer product, if this then that, for setting up things like whenever I take a picture on Instagram, it posts it as a picture on Twitter. Well, if you also have another action that is in Twitter that will post all of your Twitter pictures to Facebook, you end up like triple posting things, and it just becomes like this feedback loop. And so that's the only thing that I would really look at is, hey, are all of these make sure that you're not doing the same action twice, because when you're using Mailgun for for sending out emails, you can do that, right? Because I mean it does just handle the sending of the emails. So just make sure that you're not double dipping and sending things 2 or 3 different times, because that's a great way to end up on that block list.
Yes, it is.
And we don't want that. All right. Well, that was the end of the questions that we had. We've still got a few more minutes on the clock here. If anybody else has a couple more questions, we can get them in quickly here as well. But this has been really educational for me.
Yeah, I mean, you don't spend most of your time in Mailgun being on the Rackspace side, but I think from just listening to you, Joe, and Zapier, I would say the way that you're using Mailgun is pretty similar to a lot of our other customers. It's in the code base, and just talking about the best practices in terms of content. At the end of the day, it has to do with content. So I think the way you're using it, like I said, is pretty similar to a lot of other Mailgun customers. So we hope to get more customers like Zapier kind of talking about their use case as well.
Yeah, absolutely. If you're another customer out there watching it, let us know. We'd love to hear about it.
And we face the same challenges as well. I mean, when it comes to email, we face the same challenges, and we try to pull events and try to engage with users based on events. But just like Zapier and others, we have the same challenges.
Yeah. Email is definitely a tricky subject and a lot of different areas to explore. So,
well, this has been great. We'll take the recording and we'll send it out to everybody that registered or is on live. And we'll also post to our blog.mailgun.com, and we'll also post to Twitter and on our Google Plus page. Anything else, Alan?
Thanks.
All right, awesome.
Enjoyed it.
Thanks, Joe.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Everyone, have a great afternoon.
Bye.